Welcome to A Kind Life. Today, I'm extremely grateful to have Tony Corrales here. How are you going, Tony?
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
Yeah, very well. I'm excited that we have finally got to meet. We have had this
Yes.
in the making for probably a month now. So thank you for jumping on board.
Yeah. No problem at all.
So,
Good to finally get round to it.
so tell us a little bit about yourself. What gets you up in the morning?
Well, my cats get me up in the morning, actually, whether I like it or not, but which is probably a good thing though. But no, I do a host of things really, but I'm the co-founder of the vegan clothing brand and footwear brand Noskin. That's my sort of primary thing I work on. I'm also the host of a podcast myself, Producing with Purpose. And in that space as well, I'm also a consultant and a coach where I speak, well, a business consultant and business coach, primarily though working with either purpose-driven businesses or working with businesses who want to incorporate some more of those elements into what they do. So I guess what gets me up in the morning, so to speak, is I guess just the drive on a personal level to actually get a lot of things done. I'm very much in that space of having a lot of things that I want to achieve and do, but also with everything I do, having some element of purpose behind it, be that the brand or the consulting I do or the podcasting I do. It's always just, good enforcement to get up and work on those things because I know it's all part of a bigger picture that I'm pretty passionate about.
Yeah, and so I'm guessing, is it right to assume that your vegan journey came prior to your vegan clothing brand?
Yeah, it came quite a bit before. So I personally went vegan about 15 years ago now, which is, back in a time when it wasn't quite so accessible and quite so easy as it is now in 2022 in Melbourne. So I've come through various elements of that. I worked as well for a while. Back in my 20s, I worked for PETA, the animal rights organization as well. So I've been very much immersed in that world for a long time. And always wanted to have a business or something that was a little bit more closely aligned with that. And then when I happened to meet the right co-founders at the right time, that was the prime opportunity to do it.
And so tell us about your vegan journey. 15 years is quite a long time. So how did that happen?
15 years of it. I think it would have been 6 years before that as well of being vegetarian. So again, like back in that time, I think for 5 of the 6 years I was vegetarian. I didn't even know what veganism was. That was like, it was a very different time for it then. And it was really just the cognitive association. I love animals. I loved the dog that was in my house. I loved going out to see animals. I spent time, going to see horses in fields and doing things like that. It was all just very much like a family of animal loving people. So then it just didn't really make sense to me to not be vegetarian, even though my family didn't join me on that journey straight away. They were certainly encouraging. I even hear now people have a pretty tough time in getting their families, across the line or to support their decisions, which I really feel for because I was fortunate enough that my parents didn't, they were happy to cook vegetarian food for me and things like that. Obviously got the, pretty standard, isn't that a bit extreme when I went vegan when I was like 18? But at the time as well, I was very much off doing my own things. So that was pretty accessible. And the journey itself, I think, is really just that, I definitely think for those earlier years, probably between like 18 to 24 or something, I was what I'd class as a fairly aggressive activist in the way that I went about it, and I worked for PETA as well. So it's pretty hard to not get angry or saddened by a lot of the stuff you see. But I think it actually then came from seeing my own parents' reaction that when I sort of took my foot off the gas of, putting it forward to people a little bit, was when I saw more people around me actually come to their own decision and their own journey as well. So I think that kind of leveled me out a bit. And plus just, when you're 18 to 24, you probably got a little bit more fire in some respects and a little bit less tact. So yeah, it's been and now it's just second nature now. I forget that, it is what I do as part of my day to day. It is just part of me. But then I see as well being able to do consulting and things in the purpose-driven business space or work with vegan brands or own a vegan brand. For me now, that is my form of activism.
And so you said that early on, obviously, you sort of took to sharing the vegan messaging in quite a passionate form. When you worked for PETA, was that in like a marketing campaign space?
It was, yeah. So I was in direct marketing there. So I actually would do a variety of things. It was a lot of stuff around the direct mail that went out, which is obviously quite big in not-for-profit, the letters that go through people's doors, and organizing some of that, and also doing elements of copywriting for things like that, and just working on essentially working on what would get people to donate the most. I worked in not-for-profit after that for quite a long time as well. It's always been in marketing. So finding that fine line between provocation to get people to engage and to feel, inspired or to feel angered by something, without being just completely tactless as well, which is a fine line.
Yeah. And would you say they were sort of the first stepping stones then into building your own business?
I think in a way, probably not actually. I think that actually came for me at a later time. So I know a lot of people will say, I've been an entrepreneur since the day I could, go out and buy Pokemon cards, sell them on the playground. And it's all very, like it's in your DNA, it's in your blood. That wasn't actually the case for me. It wasn't until I was probably about 30 or late 20s that I started to get it. And that really came from a professional space that I felt like I wanted to be an environment where my input controlled my output. I knew that I could outwork the people around me. So I wanted to out-result the people around me effectively in response to that as well. So yeah, that was probably a bit later, but working for PETA, it definitely started off my journey in marketing and, understanding how to communicate through business though.
So have you always had an interest or passion for fashion, or where did that develop?
I definitely have. I think in a similar respect, and I guess it ties in with part of the vegan journey as well, is from that kind of the ages of 16 until like my mid-20s, really right before I got that job at PETA, I played music full time. That was basically my job. Some years I could barely call it a job, but in the later years of it, it was actually a paying career. And that was playing music in the punk scene as well, which has got very close ties with like the vegan movement as well. It's always quite forward thinking when it comes to social political movements in the punk scene as well. And as well, it's as much as it's supposed to be the I don't care attitude of the punk scene, it's still actually very fashion led. It's still, you're still the ones there spending an hour trying to put your hair into a mohawk and then claiming that you don't care. So I think it is actually it's a very, very fashion focused subculture. And I really, I was a big part of that. I was there for hours every night, creating your studded jackets and putting patches on things and creating your own clothing and stuff like that as well. So I've definitely always cared about my appearance of not caring, and come from that interspersion of fashion and music as well.
Yeah. And so tell us about Noskin for people who may not have heard of your brand.
Yeah, cool. So we are there's 3 co-founders basically. We're an all vegan founded vegan footwear and clothing company. Obviously, there's an element of what is vegan clothing, and that comes into things a lot as well. And in some cases, it's the small things. Like for me, as I got a bit older and got into other elements of fashion, I became a bit of a denim nerd. I really love good Japanese selvedge denim. But all of the amazing and beautiful brands out there that create it, one of the markers of quality is always the leather patch on the back, with the branded leather patch. And little things like that it's just a frustration. And it's one of those things that you're like, man, it's only a little leather patch. But if it's, in my situation, it's not something I'm going to look past. I can't justify that for a pair of jeans. It's just not in my makeup. So it was like, okay, I want to do that. I just want to make everything accessible for a vegan market, essentially. And then in footwear as well, there's some brilliant vegan footwear brands out there that make great quality products. But I guess from my marketing perspective, I did feel like, as I wanted that kind of higher degree of like, higher incorporation of fashion or a bit more style, or I wanted to buy nice things and wanted to have those aspirational brands. I felt like sometimes the vegan market was just purely relying on the fact that, hey, this is a vegan product for vegan people, come and buy it, rather than trying to present itself as a brand that could compete with any and have the benefit that it was all vegan as well. So luckily, a couple of people I came across on my journeys agreed with that, and also came from that sort of thought path as well. One of which is my co-founder Jai, and he's in the business side of things with me. We work on a lot of stuff together. And then the other co-founder being Ash, and she was a designer for Lee and Wrangler and New Denim and some big names in the denim industry as well. So we're pretty lucky to get her on board and convince her to come and be a part of the journey. So it's been going for about a year now. It's a fairly minimal product range for two reasons. One, because as well as being a vegan brand, we do believe in slower fashion, making things that are for lifetimes, not seasons. More capsule wardrobe, minimalist kind of vibes around that. And the other reason being that it's damn expensive to start a clothing company. We're a self-funded company, and there's only so much product you can make. So yeah, it's coming up to year one. It's been a pretty cool journey so far.
Yeah, it's really exciting. Actually, on the podcast before, I've had Emma, who I believe you've also interviewed as well, from Collective Fashion Justice. And, probably a few of the listeners will have listened to that podcast and all have understood, the ethics behind fashion. She really went into a lot of that. So I'm sure that, now this is a great representation of, that being put into practice in the fashion industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually, less than a week ago, was having lunch with Emma. Like we hang out quite a lot and talk about everything within, as she talks about a complete ethics system within fashion. And as well as, I sort of focus on the element of it being a vegan brand because that's the context of this podcast. But all of our garments, like when we do have Japanese salvage denim, that's actually from recycled cotton. We have a lot of products that are made from hemp and organic cotton as well. We don't make any product that doesn't have a sustainable element. We don't say we are a sustainable brand because I don't think anyone truly can when, we're producing fashion that comes with a risk of things ending up in landfill. But between that as well, and making sure that we partner with factories and manufacturers that have fair working conditions as well, and take that further and further is key for us. So we do try and, hit every element of that trifecta of ethics within fashion. Which is the most challenging thing, and it's what can be quite prohibitive in terms of cost as well of starting things up. It's very hard to convince manufacturers at this stage to work to those standards, especially when you're an unknown brand with no credibility in your first sort of 6 months of producing.
Yeah. And so from what you've learned, I believe you've started, or it may have come before that, but you do have a consultancy and coaching business for other entrepreneurs. So is that sort of taking the lessons you've learned along the way in your sort of 10-year career and using that to help other entrepreneurs turn it into, not just a side hustle, but a full-time career and business?
That's exactly what it is. I mean, I guess my coaching and consulting comes from various places. Ultimately, in the coaching sense, yes, it's how to take your it's how to take your purpose-driven side hustle into the future of ethical entrepreneurship is essentially what my tagline is around that. But I also do consulting within business operations as well. After working in not-for-profit for a number of years, I then moved into the world of digital agencies as well. I guess that's a lot of where the entrepreneurial thing comes from as well. And you certainly learn the grind of putting in the effort. And that was where I wanted to see the equal effort come out and basically run my own thing. So I've worked with some pretty enormous brands, not all within purpose driven. I've had to sort of make some, ethical compromises, I suppose, on some of the things I've worked on, which was another reason for wanting to get out of that world. But it certainly did give me a lot of exposure to industries from FMCG companies through to finance and investing, and a lot of not-for-profit as well within the agency space. But so I still do a lot of operational consulting within that, and then I'll work with small business owners to try and coach them on how to actually get their project up and running, because I understand that it can be pretty tough and overwhelming when you actually want to take, maybe it's something that you work on as more of a craft or as a creative or an artist, but you actually want to turn that into a sustainable business. Sustainable in the sense of it makes money and you don't go bankrupt within 6 months. So that's the space that I want to help people in as well, because I think there's a real discrepancy between the creativity and the business, and it's not a hard bridge not a hard gap to bridge when you come at it with the right angle.
And what was your inspiration for starting your own podcast?
That was a bit of a that was a marketing hack, basically. And it's been a really effective one. So yeah, it came from a couple of places. One thing was that I set myself a personal goal when I started the business. I feel like networking is a huge opportunity. If you're the kind of person that follows things like entrepreneur Instagram accounts, you'll see a lot of rubbish quotes and things that go out and tell you to just put your head down for 12 to 18 months and don't speak to anyone and just emerge on the other end, the next Elon Musk or something. But personally, I feel that's complete nonsense. I think the people you meet along the way and the connections you make are actually what will take you to that place. So I set myself a personal goal of speaking to one person a week who had been down the route of ethical business prior to, ahead of me, basically. And I was lucky to then just drop a message on LinkedIn to Nick, who is the founder of Etico, who are a great ethical fashion brand as well. Just wanted to pick his brain, talk to him about, what experience and challenges he'd had. And he sent me back quite a terse message saying, I see a lot of people come through and try this. It's a hard industry. Essentially, trying to knock me off the path and say, unless you're really serious about it, don't waste your time. To which I found brilliant. I was like, this is great. Tell me why. I want to know more about that. And once I kind of cracked the shell with Nick and we got talking, we actually have a really good relationship now. We still talk now. And I thought, this is really good insight. If I can speak to one person every week and get this kind of insight, that'd be great. But why not turn that into a podcast and actually share this value as well with other people? Plus, I also thought it's a great opportunity to get into a room with people who otherwise would turn down just getting a coffee to give you their secrets. Nobody's going to agree. Well, not nobody, but it's rare that you'd be able to get the founder and CEO of Bellroy or the Australian, New Zealand director of Patagonia to just carve out an hour to sit down and have a coffee and tell you their secrets. But if you put a microphone in front of them, they're pretty willing. So it was a bit of a workaround in that way. So I haven't quite managed to nail the one person a week. Turns out that doing it over coffee is a lot less labor intensive than doing it as a podcast, which you'll appreciate as well. So, I think we're up to episode 30 or so now in just over a year, but it's still the same premise is still behind it.
Yeah. And I believe as well, you still have sort of taken on that coffee idea as well. And you have another series, Coffee with Creatives.
That's right. So that's then part of Noskin. Again, it's the content marketing side of things. But as the brand, we actually, in our first year, I don't think pivot is the right word because it's hard to pivot when you haven't really started down a track. But as we were finding our brand identity and what we were really about, we realized that, yes, we're a vegan company, but that's like the foundation of our values. It's not necessarily what our brand is at its core, front marketing perspective. What we are is a brand we would say is for creative entrepreneurs. It's workwear for creatives. It's for all the people who are working in studios or starting their own podcasts or kind of going down similar routes that we did. And, whether it's from a barista to a brewer to somebody who's making ceramics, it's all those people who are just going out there and turning a passion into what they do. So we then wanted to really use it as well to build culture within the brand as an opportunity to showcase creatives as well. So we've only really managed to get a few down. We had the idea right at the beginning, but we're a COVID brand, so that was pretty challenging to do things with people in that way. But we've worked with some awesome people on that, such as Abby Rich, who's an amazing artist, doing murals and things like that and installations. And we've had Courtney Barnett, who's obviously a great Melbourne-based musician as well. This Wednesday, we're actually going to be hanging out with Shannon Martinez, the owner of and chef at Smith and Daughters as well, and doing a session with her. And that's all contributing to our upcoming campaign, which is the Made for Makers campaign that we'll be rolling out as well. So that's been another opportunity to do some good networking.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds like you've got lots of avenues to, spread your brand, but also make those connections and bring people who are probably the purchasers of your brand back in and have them as part of your community, which is great.
That's it. It's very much about building that culture and community. I think that's a big thing I found as well, as we came to this brand thinking, hey, it's a product and we'll sell it online and it's black and white e-commerce. But that's not really what happens when you're trying to create a fashion brand in this sense. It has to have a little bit more of that culture.
Yeah. And I guess what would be some advice you would give to anyone looking to start a vegan business?
For a specifically vegan business, I think it doesn't necessarily need to be your front and center leader of what you are. And I think, we're still paving the way for that and figuring that out and justifying that as a direction. But I think you can look at a lot of other companies. And if you're Melbourne based and Smith and Daughters as well, I think they did a great thing of that, is it doesn't sing and dance about it right from the off, but every vegan in Melbourne still knows that they exist. They focused on the fit out of their restaurants. They focused on the style of the menu and the cultures that it incorporated. They focused on having the staff, really represent the brand and everything that went with it. And you don't need to slap vegan restaurant on the front of it. The same way that I think if you're creating a vegan business, you don't need to slap vegan business on the front of it. The vegan people will find you. We have a great habit of hanging out on Instagram and telling each other the minute that there's a new product on the shelf of Woolworths. So let that community do that bit for you. Serve that community well and know that that is the foundation of it. But give them something that is an aspirational brand. Give them something that means that they're not sacrificing in other areas. That's exactly what creating vegan products is about, is taking what's in the market and what people would love to have a part of, like the Japanese selvage denim culture, and then giving them the vegan option with that. But don't slap vegan on it and then make it another predominantly vegan brand, because then you're not giving them what they wanted in the first place.
Yeah. And I have wondered, I actually don't know the reasoning behind your company's name, but I like to believe it's as clear as I think it could be in terms of having no animal product, no animal skin in it. Am I correct, or have I made that up?
No, that is what it is. And there's times as well, it actually originated, and it was because the business was going to be something different when it was just me founding it. It was going to be, I suppose, more heavily into, I'd say rustic menswear is probably the best way I can describe it. And I'm glad I didn't go down that route. I think that might have been a tougher market to crack. But yeah, originally it was going to be called No Skin and Bones, which we decided was probably a little bit too graphic and a little bit too in your face. So then we distilled it down to No Skin, combined it into one word, put the accent over it just to give it a little bit of mystery. But yeah, at the core of it, it was going to be a vegan footwear brand that was just no leather. So it's No Skin.
Yeah. Amazing. And so we've heard a lot about, your business, your career to date, but tell us a little bit about yourself personally. I guess you mentioned before that you had, in your early years, you had quite a passion in the music scene. So is that still part of your life today, or is that sort of stepped to the side a little bit?
It took a big sidestep for a number of years, and then reintroduced in the last year or so. I think it's always something I'll be involved with. Just before I joined the call today, I was actually listening to the final mixes of a new EP that I've got with a band that's going out. So that's still something I work on. It's still a hobby of mine. And it's nice as well, between, I suppose, on a personal life kind of thing, is I play music, and then in a more active sense, I play ice hockey as well. And those two things are very much where I can either have complete creativity that's not related to the rest of the stuff I'm doing, or I can have a complete absence of anything and go out and play sport and spend an hour where if you think about something else, you're going to get hurt. And having that is a really valuable detachment when you're very busy creating businesses, or just also on that strive for personal development. It can, burn out is real. It can up and it can come out of nowhere as well. For a while, I stopped doing both of those things because I thought, no, I haven't got time. I need to put all of my focus into this. And it's counterproductive. I actually found when I started getting back to playing sport, playing music, it then, reset my mind a little bit. So I was able to tackle other things with more enthusiasm. So it's better all round.
And so I guess, like, from your experience being, vegan for 15 years, do you have any other general advice for vegans, whether it be if they're interested, in being more active, or if they're struggling with things like burnout? Is there anything that you've experienced that you might like to share?
Um, yeah, tough one. I think in terms of specific to the vegan lifestyle, but I guess one thing, if you are feeling burnout and you are feeling the activity, I'll say for sure, whether you're vegan or not vegan, nutrition is a huge part of what you have to look out for. And I think the reality is as well that as vegans, we have to be a little bit more conscious of it sometimes. Um, just from anything, I think as well, it depends. I'm also, I'm a self-confessed junk food vegan. I certainly could be better. So sometimes I have to reel myself back into the kind of whole foods, plant-based way of eating as well. And then I just see massive benefit from doing that. I know it's a luxury to be able to say it and to be able to live by it, but if possible, and you have got the kind of disposable income and the means to do it, don't fear spending money on food. And I don't mean going out to eat, but I mean like buying good quality food as well, or investing in making yourself protein shakes and things with supplements, because I think it does help. Like actually working through all of that, I've seen myself be less productive and less enthusiastic about things when I'm not feeling that great nutritionally. What you put in is what you get out. For me, I personally, every morning when I get up, I've always got a burning desire to sit down and work on things. But while I've got that willpower in the morning, the first thing I do is, most mornings, I'm not a robot, like, when I can drag myself out, the first thing I'll do is go and work out or get to the gym or something, because that just is a good good mindset thing for me, a good headspace thing. Even if I'm super busy and I think that extra hour in the morning would be better spent catching up on work, I know it actually won't, because if I don't get out and get some fresh air, then come 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm not going to be able to do anything anyway. So yeah, I think just prioritizing health, and then everything else will have a better impact from that after as well.
Yeah. And so is there anything that you're working on coming up that you might like to share, whether it be in your personal life or in the business?
Yeah, so I think look, we have the Made for Makers campaign coming out, which is going to be at the end of May this year for Noskin, and that is where we're featuring 30 or more local creatives and makers of Melbourne and Collingwood. We'll actually then be doing a launch event at our showroom in Collingwood. We have a store there which is connected to our warehouse, and we'll actually be putting up the portrait photos of all the people that we speak with and all the people we feature in that, and hosting that as an exhibition night as well. We're going to have some awesome food down there as well. Try to get a food truck outside, have a local brewery sponsoring that, get a DJ down there as well. So that'll be a good launch event. And again, that's just us contributing to the, really trying to turn the brand into a culture that we want to live by, and we want people to enjoy with us. Aside from that as well, I'll be actually producing some more resources, so that it's not all about my time when it comes to coaching for the Producing with Purpose side of things. So I'll be releasing in the back half of this year some sort of small modules and courses for people to get themselves started out if they want to get into setting up their purpose-driven business, just some stuff to help them along. Some shortcuts to get things up and running, so they're not getting too bogged down in the process, and they can actually get on with the doing and the creating. So that'll all be coming out as well in the back half of the year, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah. Sounds like there's a lot going on. And like you said, it's sort of progressed over the last 12 to 18 months since the brand started. And it's sort of, you're working your way through everything. Yeah. I'm guessing COVID had a bit of an impact in there as well. But coming out the other side of that, you've got lots of exciting things happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in a way, we always classed last April as when our products went live, but we've always classed that really as a soft launch, and that this May is going to be our proper launch. We're going to be doubling the size of our product range, so it'll feel like a more comprehensive offering. We're actually able to have that launch party and that exhibition. We're able to get people down. So that's, it's been great to spend this year finding our feet, but I think from May this year, when we launch the new stuff and then we push forward, that's going to be the exciting times. We've got our products now stocked in the Burke Street store of Maya in Melbourne, and the Westfield Maya in Sydney as well. which I class as a pretty big win as well, to actually get, vegan boots and vegan products sold through a major distributor like Myer as well. Is nice for the community to see that we're infiltrating the mainstream. So with some of that behind us and the things we've got going on, I think, the next 12 months, or from May onwards, that 12 months is set to be pretty exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Look forward to see how that, comes to fruition for you guys. And so is there anything we might have missed, mentioning that you wanted to say before we wrap this one up?
No, I think it's, just the general shameless plug that you can head over to noskin.co, not .com, but .co, and check out what we're doing there, or you can follow us on @noskin.co. We actually are running a promo at the moment that if you sign up to the mailing list, you'll get $50 off the first order as well. So that's happening until we launch the new range. So, jump on that while it's available. And in terms of the other stuff on my podcast as well, that's at Producing with Purpose. Things have been a little bit quieter for the first start of this year, the first quarter, just because, juggling my time in different places is pretty full on. But now I'm getting back into that and setting up some of those new, some free and some paid resources that will be coming out in the year. So as well, especially if you are a business owner or a purpose-driven business owner, then definitely recommend heading over there as well.
Yeah, amazing. And I love that your cat just comes in and out during this. So thank you. We've had a little feature. That was good entertainment.
Yeah, yeah.
And
that's
so
all good. They like to make a scene.
Yeah. And just to finish up, Tony, did you happen to have a favorite quote that you would like to share with us?
I do have one. I actually have been rereading this book. So I bought my book with me. So I thought we'd have a little read session, because it's a slightly long, well, I say long, it's only a couple of lines, but my memory hasn't got the capacity for that at the moment. But this is actually a quote from Seneca as part of Seneca's letters. And I'll give you a bit of context as well. Otherwise it might just seem a little bit excessive. But the quote itself is, "Let our aim be a way of life, not diametrically opposed to, but better than that of the mob. Otherwise we shall repel and alienate the very people whose reform we desire. We shall make them, moreover, reluctant to imitate us in anything for fear that they have to imitate us in everything." And to give some context, because it's a bit heavy if you're just hearing it and not reading it yourself, it's effectively how Seneca talks about Stoicism to his fellow philosophers and getting people in line with their thinking. And what he's really saying is that if we just set ourselves to be an aspiration of what the general public is, and like something that people can achieve and it can enlighten and enhance their lives, then that's going to get them to see an enhanced way of thinking or join us on our mission, rather than alienating ourselves and making ourselves look too detached and too different, because people then think, well, if I want to make that change, I have to be a completely different person, or I have to be a complete counterculture. And when I read that, I thought that's one of the best representations that sums up my experience of seeing people go vegan. Is we don't want to make ourselves this complete subculture and counterculture that people don't want to have to embrace the whole persona of. We just want it to be an accessible enhancement to day-to-day living. And that's how we're going to change people's minds, not by making them change to be a completely different person. So I thought that was pretty relevant.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that, you gave the context in terms of what you've been reading and how you relate to it. And I think that's definitely, as soon as you started reading it, I could definitely see the correlations between, going vegan and trying to bring other people, along on that journey.
Cool. And I recommend, good recommended reading as well, is Letters from a Stoic, Seneca. It's definitely a nice change from some of the business books that I get stuck into.
I can only imagine. You've got a limited number of hours in each day that I'm sure you're using very wisely, but it's very impressive that you're finding that balance. So thanks for finding time for chatting to us today. And I'll link all the both your website and podcast into the show notes so that people can jump across and have a look. And thank you so much, Tony. Really appreciate it.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much for having me. It's been fun to chat.
Thank you.